Okay, here we are with my preferred method these days of sharpening knives. This is the Worksharp Ken Onion edition. It by standard uses, what is it, like 3/4 of an inch by 12-inch belts, maybe something like that. I don't know, but you step up to getting the blade grinder attachment for this thing, and it takes 1 by 18-inch belts, which there's other companies out there that do make third-party ones that are fairly compatible with these, and I've tried some of them. And basically, what I have noticed is that the cheaper ones, you get more for the same price, but they wear out faster, so they basically cost you around the same amount. That being said, since most of what I actually do with this guy is first reprofile and establish that edge that I actually want on there, the belt that ends up with the most wear is basically the 120 belts, or these kind of iron oxide looking duders. This one in particular, yeah, it is a an aftermarket. I don't remember exactly who. These ones were P100s. I do have some 120s that are blue that are ceramic as well. They work about the same. But the rest of the belts that come with the machine, and you can pick up other ones. We have the X65 belt right there. Then there's the X22 belt. And you got the white one that's an X4. And then you kind of have the fabric super fine one. I think they say this one's somewhere between 12 and 16,000 grit, if I remember right, something like that. Obviously, this one's got quite a bit of wear on it, so you can see basically a lot of steel, but it still does a pretty darn good job. So yeah, that being said, with everything that I do for the establishing of the edge, it does put a lot of stress on these, but you can pick up cheaper ones that work quite well. These ones, I've basically purchased one replacement set, and this is still that second set, and I've sharpened, oh geez, probably about 110 knives overall, so, probably about 55 or 60 blades each for these before they start losing their bite, and it would be beneficial for you to pick up another set, but not fully necessary. And because I'm super crazy, I do actually use a leather belt. This has diamond compound in it that I put on there so I can do a little power strop in, which, because it has the diamond compound on there and it is actually moving, it is still sharpening to a very sharp degree, which is why there's so much black on here, because, it actually does take a decent amount of steel off there. And it also kind of works its way into the diamond paste, so this looks a lot more severe than it actually is. But anyway, operation of this guy is pretty simple. It does have a standard cartridge sort of thing that comes with it. I had problems with it. That being kind of larger knives were a little bit more difficult to try to work with the weird flip this out and ride this blade across it kind of thing. And almost no matter what I did, I would screw up the tip of a knife. So, yeah. Then I decided, well, let me just go ahead and try and pick this duder up. Man, it's got all sorts of steel all over it. I didn't clean this up or anything before I got there. So, yeah, you got your two pulleys here. You can actually change the position of the secondary one. I have it closer up there, which gives you a little bit less convex edge, If you want a little bit more, then you can move it down to this lower one, which I think is the default one that it comes with, and it gives a little bit more give to the belt, so you'll get a little bit more convex edge. And this knob right here will loosen it up so you can change the angle that's kind of located here. You can go between 35, which, I don't know, maybe you're sharpening axes on it or something like that, all the way down to 10 degrees, which maybe you're trying to do a primary bevel for a Scandi grind or something like that. Then you'll want to try and do something like that. For me, with super steels, I'm at 15. For D2 and 14C 28N and everything, I'm around 17. And then for, you know, my basic steels, 440C, AUS8, all that sort of stuff, I'll stick with 20 degrees. But yeah, it's really easy to tighten it up. Let me go ahead and slap this guy on here. So yeah, you'll remove the original cassette and it just comes straight off, sort of thing. And then this guy kind of comes on and sort of folds right on down. It does also have this little extra guy, and it has tighten in the direction because it's an opposite thread. So yeah, you just have to keep that in mind when you're putting this all together. And this is basically a hold for the belt. So the belt's pretty darn easy overall. I end up going on the right side right here, and then kind of going up there. What is going on with this guy? Is loose. That must have happened when I just moved him around. Okay, yeah, that was... All right, yeah. So you can adjust that or take it off if you want to clean it, replace the spring or whatnot. So yeah, this is this basically locks when it turns down a little bit, so you can kind of twist them up and release them, and that puts the right amount of tension on the belt there for you. You have this knob here, which while it's running, you can adjust it. That will basically change the pitch, so you can center it on these things, so you're not rubbing either on the inside here, or even worse on the this little guy right over here. But yeah, once you have that angle set, things are quite simple to deal with. If I grab my Opinel number 8, which I've been using for the other ones here, you have this center plane here. This is basically flat compared to the angle for this, and so you can kind of basically center it there. Knives that are full flat ground like this, you do want to kind of compensate for a little bit, but yeah, you can basically have this thing. You have the trigger for it and the speed adjustment kind of right here on the side. I almost always run it at the very slowest speed imaginable because, well, I don't really like to build up a lot of heat in my blades. So yeah, and then this little button right here will kind of click in if you're pushing on it and pulling that trigger, which is really helpful for this because that way it will keep this going without you holding the trigger down. Kind of crucial for this whole idea here. But yeah, you can basically take it that way, and you can take it to the stone or the belts in between these two pulleys here. Has the correct angle there for you, and yeah, you can basically hold it there and drag it through, just like stones. You do want to lift up on the edge of the handle for the tip, so you don't do that at a very weird different grind. But yeah, you can do that. Swap it on over to the other side, do the same thing. And something that I personally really like with this thing, I don't use it indoors, by the way. I just brought it down here for review purposes. I actually do this sharpening in my garage. But yeah, what I do really like is if you have a nice light like this shining on there, um, you can actually visually see the burr forming on these more coarse stones or belts as you do that. What I've noticed a lot of times is if it's pretty close to ready to, or if it's pretty close to the angle that I'm heading to, like it might be 17 or maybe a little bit steeper, and I'm heading for a 17, um, then I can see it usually takes about 2 passes on each side, and then I can get that nice burr that flaps from side to side, and then that's when you're like, okay, cool, neat. Now I can move over to the next belt, so you can just pull this one off. This is the other one that I have handy now since I threw the others to the side. So, yep, super quick and easy to swap between them. And yeah, you're all ready to go with your next stone or next grit size. This guy's really sharp, by the way. Yeah, and this thing does an amazing job at being very, very consistent as long as your hands are consistent. This isn't a hold your hand foolproof kind of method like a lot more of the clamp systems. Like if you got some shaky hands or you're not doing a great job holding the correct angle there, that's going to show on the knife for sure. But what I've found, and I could probably demonstrate this in a future installment where I actually show myself sharpening something on this. It will be out in my garage, so the sound will be much different than it is here. But that's okay. So, man, I lost my train of thought there. I got all excited about trying to film me sharpening on this thing, but oh well. But oh yeah. What I was going to say is, and I've kind of learned this from sharpening on other build systems. Is on a 1x30 vertical belt grinder, because that's where I basically cut my teeth on sharpening on these kinds of things anyway, is once you have the angle and everything set there and it's up on your abrasive, you kind of want to lock your body. So at this point, I'm not moving my arms. I'm actually just twisting my torso and keeping everything the same. And that seems to do a pretty darn good job of keeping a very, very consistent angle. And yeah, you end up with some really, really impressively sharp knives out of it. They're probably not going to rival. Oops, jeez. Well, this guy's not really the epitome of that, but yeah, I mean, wow. Right around here, I probably hit it on some sort of stone as I was using this for an example of a couple of things. But yeah, this does a very, very good job of putting a very, very nice edge on the knives. Very refined. It's probably not going to rival someone who's done hand sharpening. And it kind of has to do with usually the way that you're dealing with the blade grind kind of thing. You can kind of try and compensate a little bit for that by sharpening, as you would say, kind of maybe on the bias, to use like a cooking term kind of thing, to try to get that tooth pattern there. But you really wouldn't want to polish it up on a leather for that. You would want to probably stick with the white or X4 belt. And that would get you a little bit more of that toothy grip that is quite nice to cut with, but doesn't look quite as nice on camera. And, you know, I do like to reflect my shiny edges in the light sometimes. It's just kind of entertaining to me. All right, so that's the Ken Onion with the Worksharp sort of thing. It does have a flat portion here on the back. I don't personally use it, but what a lot of people will end up doing is, well, I mean, for one, if they are used to sharpening on one of those 1 by 30 inch vertical belts with a plattern, that's basically what this side right here is for. It's got the steel coming out and bracing the back, so you can hold it at the particular angle that you want to go and go both ways with it, which is another option if you want. The other thing that more people end up doing with it is if the spine of a knife isn't quite crisp for getting a nice fire steel, you can actually turn this on, slap that knife on there flat, and just drag that through a few times. And boy howdy, that gets crisp. So it's, kind of an extra nice thing to it. But this thing is also really nice for putting great edges on an axe as well. In my less flexible years, we'll say, I do prefer to sharpen an axe on something like this rather than sitting down. Gosh, what do they say anymore? Crisscross style. There's another one that I've heard. I don't know. When I was a kid, we called it Indian style, which is ridiculous because, I mean, obviously, Indians don't sit like that. Probably neither did Native Americans, but that's not what they were really calling it. So, yeah. But sitting that way, having the axe handle in between the legs to be able to hold it there and sharpening with a file and everything works to get an amazingly sharp edge, but I also get numb legs, and I don't like that at all. So I tend to want to sharpen them on something like this these days. I don't sharpen them very often, but every so often there's a tree or, I don't know, whatever else that might need an axe buried in it. So, want to make sure that it's working great. Yeah, anyway, this is the Worksharp Ken Onion edition with the blade grinding attachment. And it's kind of my more favored way of sharpening most of my knives these days. It does put a slightly convex edge on there. It's not super V like most other flat sharpening things like stones and other things like that. So it is a little bit different, but I do find that it does give a little bit more strength to behind the edge, especially for thinner knives. So I kind of like that quite a bit. Helps out a lot. Yeah. And some people actually prefer convex edges. I guess a lot of bushcrafters actually do. Whether they do Scandivex or a true convex kind of sharpening, which you can get with a stone, but it does take a special finesse that you need to learn. But this does it as well. Does a pretty darn good job, and it's good enough for me for sure. Like I said, I've sharpened well over 100 knives on this thing so far. And, it does take a few for learning, just like any other system or sharpening stone or anything else. That's why I suggest kind of picking up something super cheap, like these Open L's. They're, maybe $15 or something like that, and a fairly decent knife. So once you've got that down, if you're learning a particular system, sure, you're going to take a little bit more steel off than what you started with. But you're still going to have a really nice knife at the end of it that's super sharp, and you've gained the muscle memory for sharpening on whatever system you want. So that's a good tip, I suppose, that most people are probably already aware of. All right, I've rambled on far too long. So I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, I'm talking to you, yo.